Hello, everyone. I am professional photojournalist Andrew Biraj. Have the pleasure to invite you in Photos and Stories. Today, in this second episode of Photos and Stories, I'm going to start by showing solidarity towards the greatest movement of today's American life, Black Lives Matter. Photos and Stories is a social media live podcast. It is being broadcasted simultaneously on two major platforms, Facebook and YouTube, from my profile below. In this fortnightly broadcasted live show, I have the privilege to invite legendary and successful professionals in the photography industry from all over the world. My purpose is to present behind the picture stories of the life and journey of these legends. Today, it is a great honor to present legendary American photographer, the first full-time Black photographer nominated by Magnum Photo Agency, the author of several epic books, including Black in America, one of the most respected photographers of American history, ELI REED. Let me welcome ELI REED.
Hey, hello, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I think I'm awake, so I think I'm doing okay.
Welcome to the show, Photos and Stories.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Okay.
So, tell us about you. Where are you now, and how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm at home right now, and I'm getting ready to cover some things tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday, involving the funeral and viewing of our. It's just a terrible situation, for everybody, and yet I think a lot of people are being awakened in a good way, hopefully. So that's what I'm doing, preparing for that. And that's why I was up all night preparing for that, sort of.
Yeah. So with the situation with coronavirus and also with the Black Lives Matter movement, so have you been covering anything, or what have you been up to?
Well, I covered the one of the demonstrations in Austin. I'm in Austin, Texas, right now, and besides doing that, there's a lot of things coming up because of the situation, Black Lives Matter, and they're working with Magnum, and there's a new section called Magnum Flow, which goes inside how Magnum works and tells you the story, the inside story. It's pretty fantastic, and it was created by really creative people in Magnum. So to let people know, so that people know what's going on, and the reality of Magnum also.
Yeah, very important indeed. I think that would be really great to see this section of Magnum. It will inspire a lot of photographers. So in the very beginning, I just wanted to start it in a very formal way. I know that you are not only a photographer but also a poet by yourself. You have been a painter initially in your life. So tell us a little bit about your beginning in the photography. How did you end up taking up photography, and what happened at the time?
Well, my first year out of high school, I went to night school, art school at night, because I didn't get into the day school, at first. And so I was working at night, and I was also, I think I bought a camera, a Kodak Instamatic 104 camera. It was a long time ago. Yeah, that was the first camera I had. And after 2 weeks, I was trying to take time exposures of the moon, which did not work, of course. And when you're in art school, I took pictorial illustration design. That's why I graduated. And what happens is you acquire what's called a swipe file, so that you can have reference to things if you want to draw hands or a truck or trees or something like that inside of your illustrations. Now, I was really into serious painting from the time I was in high school. And in fact, international art critic whose name I don't remember came to school because he was just happened to be passing by in Perfect Amway, New Jersey. I don't know what he was doing there, but he was there, and he saw this show of student work, and he had the principal bring me down and to meet him, and he talked to me, and he was talking about how the angle of view and what I was doing with this painting, and said I should seriously consider a career in art, which is what motivated me to go to art school. But no one had, people could say, oh, I like your work. Oh, it's really nice, interesting. But to have somebody very seriously, who's a serious person, tell you that, that's what motivated me to go. So in art school, I finally got into day school the next year, and it was a very intense time. I was also working in a hospital full time at night. So that's when I started getting used to the idea of not having sleep. And that was also motivating because you're seeing people all kinds of different ways, and you start to understand the human condition a little bit better, perhaps, because when you're a kid, get out of high school, or you're not really aware yet. You're learning, and eventually, I saw two movies that really put me over the edge toward photography after I got out of art school. One of them was the movie Lawrence of Arabia. When a reporter was on the crest of a hill with Sir Lawrence before launching an attack. And I wanted to be there. I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to hear what they were talking about. I mean, in real life, you're thinking about, And then, so that was one thing. And he had a camera, a 4x5 speed graphic, the reporter. And that was one thing. And the movie Z by Kostagarbis, the Greek director, which is based on an actual incident. The soundtrack was basically a Nikon camera with a motor drive going on, and that it covered a true event that was successful. The photographer and the reporter helping bring changes. It was really amazing movie, and those two movies were really big motivating factors. That and the fact that I was reading all the time, everything I could get my hands on, because I wanted to know about the world. I wanted to see what was really going on, and I wanted to make pictures. So that combination eventually helped guide me toward being serious photojournalist. And the fact also, when I was in art school, some of the reference material I was getting for my swipe file were pictures by Magnum. You'd see something in a magazine. There was a lot of photo magazines that had annual magazines with the best of work from all over the world. And a lot of times I kept on saying, I noticed that the Magnum name, though I didn't know what it really meant, except to me it meant quality, interesting stories, intimate feelings about people and things like that. And so that was sort of like a guide I didn't know I was having given to me. And I didn't imagine that someday I would actually be in Magnum photos. Even that was an interesting trip, because what happened is I worked for 3 newspapers. I finally, after 11 years working in a hospital, I finally got a job, a full-time photographer. Before that, I volunteered. I worked for a rock magazine at one point, for Upper East Side, New York, weekly newspaper, African-American weekly paper in New Jersey, where I lived. I was always, trying. Even when I worked for the weekly magazines, I would try to not process the film until the last minute to get that feeling of being on deadline, Yeah. And that worked. It worked. Yeah. So I don't like to miss deadlines, and all that contributed to, I guess, making me come into the career and not be afraid to take chances. I'm not just talking about chances with your body, but chances on making images that were interesting, that said something, that connected with people. It's a long story.
Absolutely, yeah. Some amazing stories. Viewers, we will be hearing some amazing stories from Eli Reed's career today, and we'll be watching a lot of photos too. So, Eli, I just wanted to, get to the point very straightly. Like, you have documented the lives of African Americans from the 1970s through the end of 1990s, right? And then you wanted to go to Vietnam, but then you realized that there is a big hidden war in your own country, which is racism. You started to document the Black Americans, and after 16 years of work, you published the epic, timeless, the most significant photo anthology in American history, Black in America. So, how do you see your work in this context when racism still prevails in American society and thousands of people are on the street to gain their rights?
Well, it is a long story because it's this is not something new. Started like when African Americans were brought to this country as slaves. There's so many terrible stories that things that happen to people. There's a story one place in Georgia where these people from one tribe were brought in, slaves, and there was someone and one of the other slaves there who was already there told them what was going to happen to them. So they were chained together. I think it was at least 19 people, 19 Africans, and because they'd rather die than live as slaves, they jumped into the water, chained together, and died. Yeah, which is extraordinary. And there's so many stories, horrible stories, where lynchings and things like that. And my father, he grew up in Georgia, and my mother grew up in Georgia, and he told me stories about some of the things that were happening. And my mother was very special, and like all mothers are special. Eventually, if you don't understand that, I feel sorry for you. But she used to sing in a choir, and she just had a beautiful look at life, no matter what. When she passed away, I was like 12 years old, and I didn't understand how people were appreciating her by at a wake, and I was sort of upset about it. And then you realize that's because she was a special person. But between her and my father, who he went through very difficult times as a black man, particularly, wasn't easy, as it's still going on, but more viciously today. So I try to take the high road by photographing what's there, trying to understand the dynamics and the importance of people resisting this. And it's a long road. It's not easy thing, and everybody's involved. Racism hurts more things in this country, in the United States or any place else, but particularly in this country, it wastes so much energy. It destroys anything that's not accepted is just rejected, and you have to keep on rising above that. And there's all kinds of insidious racism that people don't even know they're being racist because it's just so accepted for a long time. And I actually had an occasion. I was volunteer teaching at a prison in upstate New York, what actually ended up being my contact into getting my first job because my car broke down. That's another story I won't go into. But there was this one guy there. There's this prison. There was a story in the New York Times how the guards were basically recruiting guards to come there to join the KKK, and which is I sort of forgotten about it. I read the story in the New York Times, and then 2 years later, I ended up teaching at this prison. And from the very first day to the last day, it was an intense experience. But during that time, one of the guards who was in the Ku Klux Klan sort of reached out to me, and we'd have these conversations away from the other guards. But it's like trying to connect with something that's maybe above your pay grade, but trying to be real, trying to be understanding, and you can't just tag everybody as being a terrible person. So I mean that's informed also the way I try to work. I try to go in understanding what I don't know and try to take it in, try to understand it. That's the only way that you're going to be able to make any progress, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I have also read that when you were in Beirut first time, you were like, means you had a very little idea what was going on, and then you read a little bit about Beirut, the history of Beirut, and then, but you kept your eyes open. So, and it helped you to document the Beirut in your own way. So we will be talking about Beirut too, but going back to your Black in America. So. So have you ever been? Have you ever encountered the racism by yourself?
You're kidding. You're kidding. Yes, of course. I think any black male, especially young black males, older black males, you're going to run into it. You can stop by a cop who's pulled over, and he said, "You're impeding my motion forward," or something like that, and it was ridiculous. If I had not impeded his so-called motion forward, I would have run over one of the people that pull the carriages and people in the carriages, and bicycles, that kind of thing. So he was obviously, this particular cop was just looking to hassle me. I mean, this is just one thing. And the thing is, I'm not angry at all cops. I mean, starting from when I was a kid, I got hit by a car when I was in first grade, and a police officer, white police officer, very tenderly got me into the back of the car that hit me to get me to the hospital faster. And it was so tender, and I remember that, so I was probably going into shock, but he got me there. And then it turned out years later, somebody who became one of my best male friends lived across the street from him, and so I ended up meeting him again, as much older, as a teenager, with his sons. We used to play basketball and baseball together and stuff like that. And he taught me how to play poker 5 times. I'm not a very good poker player. I kept on forgetting. But not just that, just the way the police I knew in Perth Amboy, they conducted themselves. They were like, I could look at them as friends. So it's sort of a shock when you go places and you see that's not all the time the way the way you grow up. But also I continued to meet good police officers all over the place. Hey, protect and serve. How bad can that be? That's it's an honor to do, serve your community. And I've met enough police to know about that, to see that in action, and so many ways of kindness. But when a few police officers muddy the waters in a really bad way, a horrible way, then it's like it's time for you to say something about it. Because I think a lot of times people upstairs are not paying attention. They're not paying attention, and it's just another political thing to say. I'm not anti-politics, or that politics is like people, dealing with people. But, there's responsibilities that come with it. So are you going to deal with these responsibilities, or are you going to let things go on as they are? In spite of that, somehow, we keep on going forward. And I think the people, there's excitement now, because there are, the police have actually reached out and engaged with demonstrators in a way, and starting with the guy that I saw in the I forgot what the city was, but the police, the sheriff. I mean, there's ways of connecting. There should be ways where human beings, and my last book, Eli Reed, A Long Walk Home, is about that, what it means to be a human being. That's what all my work has been about. When I look at it and I realize, I can't go the other way. I can't. So if somebody says, "Oh, not enough action photographs." Hey, if you want to be a sports photographer, be a sports photographer. This is not a sport. This is like about human beings. It's and how people live and how they die, and all that kind of good stuff. How they love, and that's what's so important.
Absolutely, yeah. Sure. Like we are gonna see some of your photographs, and we are gonna learn some behind the picture stories of your photographs from Black in America. If you allow me, may I just go through some comments, if you
Sure.
if you don't mind? So Mr. Sajid Ahmed from Bangladesh, he's telling it's great to have him with you. Shyla Green Kenton, she said, exciting. Mustafa Habib Chaudhary, good evening from Bangladesh, Biraj Bhai, and Mr. Eli Reed, great to be in this discussion with you. Amelia Diaz, hi, Eli Reed.
Secret student, very good student.
Yeah.
Hey, yo, Brian, how you doing?
Yeah, Brian, I hope love Eli. Yeah, we all love Eli. Linda Kessler, is this being recorded?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. And it will be on my YouTube channel too. So it will be, so anyone can watch it again and again after this live show. So Elizabeth Paul, love to you, Eli Reed.
Yeah.
A lot of love and hello from fellow students and co-workers and friends. So Brianna Ho again said that, hello, my friend, good to see you. Hope you are safe and healthy. Have you gone out to photograph any of the protests?
I have. I have. Of course, it was an interesting day since I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I got out of the car and sort of my back and my side said, "We're going to hurt you today," and it was hard to walk. I mean, and the only reason I had to walk 4 blocks was 4 of the longest blocks of my life. But I got there. I made some pictures, and of course, as I was arriving there, the crowd was leaving en masse to go down Congress, probably toward either the police station or City Hall. And I knew I couldn't do that, not be left on the ground or something like that. So I made photographs. You make photographs of what you can do, which is the best that you can do. Sometimes you can't always get what you want. Sounds like a Rolling Stone song here, but it's true. And so I just did my best. I made pictures, and it's funny because a long time ago I used to go before I actually was able to get hired by anybody. I did volunteer work on different publications because I wanted to get the experience. But anyway, what happened is one time I sat at Bethesda Fountain for 2 hours, and just with a wide angle 21 millimeter lens, I just photographed whatever passed in front of me that caught my interest. And that was informative. That was a good thing to do, to keep yourself steady, to be able to not think you have to go running. And I've used that technique, even like some stories I did in Georgia once. I remember that because a picture ended up being on the front of the opening picture of a big photo essay, and that I did. And just, you don't necessarily have to have the longest lens in the world. Hello, Stacy. The longest lens in the world. You just have to have I know sometimes even I don't, under maybe the wildest, craziest experiences, have peace within yourself that you can cut out all the stuff that's not important, so that the stuff that is important can come into your camera. That's the thing.
Sure. Eli, can we go? Maybe we will not be able to read all the comments because a lot of comments are coming up. So maybe I'll be showing some comments and taking few questions. But I really want to go to your photographs, and if you want to start and telling about your photographs and your stories.
I'll try to. I know how many to make. So I have 200 photographs. We may get through that. We may not. So here goes.
Thank you again for doing this for us.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's see. Share. Come on, I know you can do this. What is this? Your entire screen. This entire screen. Okay, this is what I hate. It's technical.
No worries. Take your time, and in the meantime, I'm showing some more comments to our viewers.
Okay.
Somebody's Maureen Bittler. She said, "Hi, Eli. So great to see you virtually and hear you speak about the world as it is and photography."
I would love to be able to get them pushing this button. It's not doing anything.
There is a button called share screen.
Yeah, I hit that. That's and it came up, but it's not the button that says share is not cooperating. So having issues. No, I'm not going to touch anything until you tell me to touch something, because I don't want to see. What maybe see, try this. Try this. No, that's not happening either. I don't understand that. Let me cancel it for a second. Try again. Let's try again.
I'm sorry about this technological difficulties. These are some new technology we all are encountering at this moment. So if you just click on the share screen button and then
works with I think I see something that might help. Okay, and now let's see. And let's see. Now that I'm gonna try that again. I think there's I'll try that again. I think
Okay, so once you share, click on share screen, then click again share screen button, and then you'll see that your entire screen, and click on the entire screen button.
Yeah.
click share.
Ah, I see that now. Okay, maybe I should do that. The share screen again. Let's go have some fun. Okay, screen sharing best. So good for computer. This is a good computer. Okay, let's go here, and your entire screen.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Now you see the entire screen.
Yes, I do.
Just click on the screen, please.
Oh, maybe like here, not outside or this part here.
Yeah, just on top of the screen,
On top of the screen. Okay.
just underneath of your entire screen
Oh,
command. There's the entire screen,
yeah.
and once you click on the screen and then click on share. Oh, yes, you got it.
I got it.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm still confused.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We all went through these kind of difficulties. These are new things, and I know it takes time. Even it took time for me too. So
I'm trying to find my images. They're
is that-
behind.
that's
maybe-
okay.
Oh wait, I think I know what it is.
That's okay. I give you some time.
Is that? Did you see that?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good start. Okay.
Awesome.
Oh boy. Okay, that was close. Okay. Now this picture is in Sugar Ditch, Mississippi. What happened? I was actually on assignment for Sports Illustrated in Memphis, but Jesse Jackson had talked about this small town where it's called Sugar Ditch, was like sort of how you call it, a sad joke, because the African American people there didn't have toilets, or it was really there's a really kind of terrible stream running through town, and the white people there thought that was, they were perfectly happy with that. And this is like this is a picture I think is from the first trip. That first trip was when I finished the assignment for Sports Illustrated, and my assistant drove me to Mississippi to Sugar Ditch, and I spent time there, did photography, and then a German publication saw some of the pictures I made and sent me back to take pictures when it got actually fixed. I mean, where it's finally a good place to be. So that was really good, I thought. I'm going into things like that are not just Black subjects, but here, this is like doing in Georgia again, at Beirut, Georgia, Atlanta Pop. It was like as big as Woodstock. I thought, now this soldier was from, obviously come from, in Vietnam, and he was, he's surrounded by hippies, so-called hippies, I'll say. And yet he's the only one that's, shall we say, enjoying himself in a way. So that was good. This picture is taken in 1976. It was like USA was celebrating the 200th anniversary, and I was just wandering through the streets, taking pictures. And I sort of, some pictures you look at and you just respond immediately, maybe because it's hopeful, something that's, just simple thing, tender moment. This is like I used to go to Central Park a lot. This dog was having a problem, and people were concerned, and so I made this photograph. This is back to Cameron, Georgia, where one of the participants just offered me, because it wasn't much, it was difficult to get food there, really, I think. I mean, it's probably more expensive than it should be, but there's a good feeling in there, and that counts for a lot. This is a psychological self-portrait about, because of all the things that were going on and the craziness. I did a series of pictures. This is Sly Stone, Sly and the Family Stone, big rock group, and he was an interesting dude. But I'd heard something about how if you whisper the name of somebody or say the name of somebody in a party, even if it's a loud party, because the vibration of your name being spoken, a lot of times you can hear. So this is I was like, it was very noisy. It's just, this is back Madison Square Garden, but I whispered his name. Sly. I don't know if you heard me, but it was that low. And he turned and looked at me, which was pretty funny. Okay, good science there. This is I did a first one-man exhibition was of how people are taken into places because of environment, how they are grown up, and all kinds of things. And this is one of the photographs from that exhibition.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
This is a village in South Carolina that is it's been practicing. It's like going to Africa. It's like my first trip to Africa in South Carolina. It's African village, and people there did not speak English until after 12 noon. They spoke the dialect of the place where you're at.
Like, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Like all of your photographs, it looks like that you are very close to the people. You are in the private space of people, and you kind of build a relationship with the people. So I know that you have done this work in a very big span of time, and
Mm.
you have been traveling a lot, and of course, everywhere. So have you ever encountered by yourself that people shared you their personal stories of struggle, stories of agony, stories of sadness? Is there any story do you want to share today?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good question because it's true. It's true. That happens all the time. Um, there's also communication between you look at somebody, they look at you, and they can understand that you're in a certain place, and that you have a positive attitude toward them, that you are not a threat to them. I'm a big black guy, right? So a lot of people could think that they're paranoid, could think that, but I'm not. I got into studying judo just after high school, and I was very good at it. But I started it because I did not want to let a lot of the uh, angry, the anger that comes up when you see people, yourself, but not just yourself, but other people being, not being treated very nicely. And I did not want to be one of the people that loses their temper and just trashes somebody. And so judo was part of it because I admired the Japanese art of judo and the things that Kodo de Bushido and self control, focus, and you can go into the world. Why would you want to go into the world a threat to other people? And I basically like people. I think when thinking about, I'll get to the point here. I keep on thinking there's a holy man once wrote a book called The Seven Story Mountain. Thomas Merton, and in the first page so I came into the world a child of God, loving him and yet hating him. And as far as I'm concerned, that makes the world a very complicated place, and you think about that and he goes into places. But as reference to how, when you come in contact with somebody, sometimes the first meeting is like very brief. Like there's a woman, the day that I decided to start shooting my Black America work, I thought about it for 2 years. It took 16 years to shoot, but it should have been 18 years because the first 2 years I thought about it or let it roam through my head while doing other things. How would I go to do something like this? It seemed like an impossible task because I didn't see very much the likelihood of getting any support from it or enough support from it. And I was right. There is some stuff, but there's also some very good things and encouragement from brother Magnum photographers. Like Gil Perez suggested to me that they encouraged me to get more assignments so I can do the work. Anyway, that first day, there's a black woman, who was holding a white baby. It's obvious that she was a nanny. And she had this very sad look in her face. And I was like roaming with a friend, Stanley Green, and I think he had a Mustang car, 65 Mustang, something like that. And just, he's a photographer. Unfortunately, he's passed on. He was a fortunate individual in a lot of ways and did some good stuff. Anyway, I see this woman. I photograph her, instinctual, not if you hesitate, maybe the train left the station and you didn't get the moment you were trying to capture. And she, we didn't talk much except to say, I hope you're well, something like that, and it was very tiny, short conversation. I actually made 5 pictures that day that ended up in my Black America book. This is in Richmond, California. And anyway, just recently, a few years ago, I was contacted by a member of her family, and I found out what the story was behind there. She had 6 children. I didn't get, where the husband was or what was the situation, but she was 6 children alone, taking care of them. She had lost her job, her primary job that day. So, how are you going to take care of 6 children by yourself? Single mother, that kind of thing. And her kids told me that she had raised those 3 boys and 3 girls. All 3 girls went to college. All 3 boys are working in jobs and good stuff, and they loved their mother, and they were just really happy to see the photograph I'd made of her. I mean, that almost it's amazing. It's amazing. But that's the kind of thing that's, you run into occasionally. That was extreme because there was a long break. That was in what 1983, 84, something like that. Yeah, something 84. Here we are, 2020.
Yep.
And still you feel it.
Amazing. We are getting a lot of comments again. So if you don't mind me going through a few comments in between. Mr. Zaid Islam, he said love and respect. Marianne Shiv Price, she said hello Eli. Maureen Bittler, she said hi Eli, so great to see you virtually and hear
Same
you
here.
about the world as it is and photography. Kirsten Hacker, hi Eli, good to see you. Shakaut Hussain, living legend, Mr. Eli Reed, love this interview. And Miss Swirldo, she said, hi, Eli Reed, Mahbub Ali, great to see you. Atif Al Said, hello, Eli. So you are getting a lot of love and hello from all over the world. And can we go? So let's go back to your stories.
Okay. Oh, this one was in Guatemala, and we came around the corner. I was in a car with a translator and two local reporters, and I had said before, I just had a funny feeling, that they should enter this place carefully, and they were probably skeptical, but they come around the corner and there's that guy with a 50 caliber waiting for us, or not waiting for us. It's there, but even the 2 local reporters were got into a certain mode to be very respectful, and they say to the guy with the 50 caliber, we've been sent from Guatemala City to speak to your commanding officer. That's what they told me to say anyway, and so this is the commanding officer. And as soon as he came down, I said, that's the only picture I want to take. It said so much about so much. And so he nodded his head. Yes, it's okay. I think I made 4, maybe 5 frames at the most. And I told him, thank you very much. And thank you very much. And I said, let's get going. And sure enough, we found out later that day that he'd had 8 people executed at a wake who, because the village voted the wrong way at the last election. And another young woman was attacked and killed and burned up in a car. Not good stuff, And the biggest shock was, though, that later I find out that one of the 2 reporters was in the secret police. So one of the reasons I don't talk very much when I'm working, very minimal talk. When I answer questions, I'm not a dumbbell. This guy is Roberto Dobson. He's the one that created the death squads in El Salvador. It's a very charismatic character. This was at the wake of a friend of his who was shot to death by another faction. So,
Eli, I got a very important question. I wanted to ask you this question too. This is from my friend Mubashir Hassan. He's a professor working in Oslo, Norway. He asked, Eli, could you please share your story about photographing Tupac Shakur?
But I'm sorry. What? Say that again. About who?
uh, Tupac Shakur.
Oh, Tupac Shakur. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, and how was he as a photo subject? How did you feel when you heard of his death? Tupac and his song "Fight the Power" became symbol of. Uh, s- I'm sorry, I don't see the whole comment here, but yeah. So he wanted to know more about Tupac Shakur and your experience.
well, I was working with him on the movie Poetic Justice, and what happened is that that was my introduction to hip hop rap music. John Singleton. It's John Singleton's second movie, and it was interesting. Here it is. We come to the okay. The director's on the set. You can hear the music coming from 4x4, you know. And John he was more special than some people can ever realize. Uh, his compassion and his passion about making films that tell a stories that should be told. It's just wonderful, and I feel the loss every day. I feel the loss also of Tupac because Tupac it was taking off his shirt to change to a costume or something, and I saw his tats, and I said, "Ooh." I said, so I went over to him, I said, Tupac, I want to take a portrait of you without your shirt. I just put it out just like that. And he looked at me. He nodded his head. He understood. But I guess we're around long enough that he understood that uh, I wasn't just doing it for that kind of thing. So we talk about it every week. Most of the time when he was on set working about different ideas, I talked about different ideas of photographing him. And we'd have these conversations, and we're in long conversations because he's there to act and do the stuff, but I get an itch to say what if, right? So then what happens is that as we're proceeding through toward the end of the movie, I could tell Tupac was getting he was sort of upset. I mean, I think he had a feeling that something's out of control, and you got to face up to it, but it's not easy. Anyway, so when the day came for me to shoot the poster, the end of the movie, I told my two assistants at the time, because I was also shooting stills of the action of the movie, I mean, the scenes. And so I had to do both those things, really. So I haven't set it up, the lighting part I wanted to, which wasn't difficult. I was already shooting in a certain corner the poster pictures, And so anyway, I told my two assistants, I said, listen, Tupac is going through some stuff, and so he's okay to say good morning, stuff like that. He's cool. He's a good guy. It says, but don't get any long involved conversations for two reasons. Basically, because he has to deal with he's acting, for the movie, getting ready for that, but also because he's going through some kind of turmoil, and I didn't want to, you accidentally set something off. I mean, conversation was probably shorter than I just told you. But then just after I said that, a crew guy came up to another fellow crew member came up to me and said, "Hey, do you hear what just happened?" And I said, "No, what?" He says, "Tupac just punched a hole in his trailer." And so I think I remember turning to my two assistants and saying, he says, "That's exactly what I'm talking about," And so anyway, we're shooting that day. And then at one point I saw an opening where I could do the portrait I wanted to do. So I asked Tupac I went up to, I said, "Tupac, it's time." And he just nodded his head. And we took him to the position again where I shot some earlier stuff of him and Janet Jackson. And as he's taking off his shirt, I realized I didn't want to have his whole shirt off. I said, "Stop right there." If I recall, Elizabeth, you could fill in if because you were one of my assistants, and I said that okay, stop right there, and I made 3 frames on the camera, and I knew that was it because he was very vulnerable, and somebody's going through stuff, and then and that was 3 pictures, and then when as I think as I was walking away, where I mentioned Elizabeth reminded me of this because I'd forgotten this. She said, I think he's going to be dead within a year or in jail within a year. And not in jail because he did something, but because his posse was doing some stuff that was not so cool, and he's going to take the hit for it. But he was dead for, I think it was 2 years, and it still shocks me to the day. When I heard he was dead, it was like unbelievable. I just couldn't fathom. I mean, even though what I said, I mean, Elizabeth reminded me of that when I was on a tour for at the Leica Gallery in San Francisco for an exhibition, and she reminded me of that. So that's the story.
That's incredible. Yeah. So if I want to go back to some more comments.
That's John Singleton and Terry Banks. That was also another story because Tyra had asked me to photograph her. She'd seen some pictures I'd done of another of the actors, and I was sort of interested. This was in higher learning, and these stories I was hearing from the young actors about their experiences, and so I started a little project, which I'm still working on, by the way, shooting the actors, the young actors particularly, And then Tyra saw a take from a contact sheet from one of the pictures and asked me if I would shoot her. I said, yeah, sure. And the funny thing is, sometimes I can be very stupid. I didn't realize how beautiful she was. I knew she was beautiful, but I didn't realize she was a superstar. Anyway, so we're working on a studio that her mother had gotten, or she arranged that, and I knew that she and John were going out, and John showed up after he'd been editing all day, and just on our day off, just in the middle of the week, because we're shooting on the weekend some scenes where violence on the campus was not cool like it's doing the week. It scared too many people. So anyway, John comes and just sits quietly. He's reading a book or looking over notes for the film, and then I wanted to photograph the two of them together, but I did not want to invade the privacy. It was just the kind of thing, you just don't want to do that. So anyway, but John knows me by now, and he says, Eli, let's do some pictures. So anyway, most of the pictures of John where he's like looking straight into the camera with a very stern look, powerful look. And I wanted something different. So I knew that they were together, right? And so I said, go. I asked Tyra, just embrace him. And he put his hands up, and that was the picture. So, I mean, it's like, the funny thing is I see that, what's her name? Very sexy woman, and the rapper, you know what I'm talking about, the black rapper. Okay, never mind. I can't. I'm just forgetting names right now because I'm on a stream. That's the kind of typical picture. This is also interesting that Lawrence Fishburne didn't want to be called Larry anymore. He wanted to be called Lawrence. He's an adult, right? He's earned that. And Tupac, he's getting wants to produce movies and things like that too. And telling John he needs another hit, and he had another hit. I mean, that picture is very popular with the college students, I think, because it addressed a lot of things that are still going on. This is a homeless Native American in San Francisco.
Yeah. So Eli, you have been a photographer in the film industry in the Hollywood, and as you have been telling few stories of your experiences. So how did you end up taking photos of the movie? And
I have somebody to blame for that. I always love movies, but I have a friend, Bruce Talman, who's one of the top still photographers in the business. He's retired now, basically, but he's done such amazing work. And as a documentary photographer, he did a thing on Bob Marley, which is that's covered that book, Spirit Dancer. It's the most beautiful, most powerful image of Bob Marley I've ever seen. And I met him. He was 1984, covering the election. He was working for Time Magazine and covering Jesse Jackson. And I came out of Beirut on a Tuesday, got right back in the United States on Tuesday, and on a Wednesday, I was on the way down to Mississippi, cover the election, presidential running, all kind of stuff. Anyway, so I'm at this thing when we're, I think, in Alabama with George Wallace and waiting to go into his office with Jackson they're having this little talk, and so people are sort of trying to move in position. This is Leon, who's a buddy first movie I worked on, 5 Heartbeats, and he's like my brother. We just said, I'm not going that sideways. Anyway, what happened is that there's a I think it was an English cameraman who was using his camera like a bludgeon. And I looked over at Jacques Chenet, he's passed away a long time ago now, but he was a photographer for Newsweek. And I didn't know Jacques at all, but I looked into his eyes, and he's a big guy like me. And we both looked, and the look said, no, he ain't. And we moved into position to let Bruce get in there because the guy was going to knock Bruce out of the way, which it was like stupid, crazy, So he blocked the guy from moving, period, and said, tell Bruce, take your time. So that started a long friendship. And Bruce is the one that introduced me into the movie business. 5 Heartbeats was the first movie. And he's still my best friend, one of my best friends, one of my best male friends. He's a brother. He's not a friend, he's a brother.
Oh, great.
Yeah. This is Janet.
Janet Jackson.
Just a quiet moment just before going to do a take. This is I photographed every movie I photographed. I started the same way, photographing it like I was doing a photo essay, and
Yes.
I learned how to do it. This is a story. This is from a documentary actually about Jacob Riis and the photographers that carried on. I'm one of the photographers. I didn't know he was going to have a camera following me around, but it was okay. But camera operator, the director was great. The way he shot the stuff. This is Robert Altman, Kansas City, amazing person. I learned a lot about movie making from him. I mean, it's like collaborating because he originally was going to shoot half the movie was going to be stills and half the movie with regular film. And at the last minute, which I knew was going to happen, he said, "I can't do this." The day before, I was supposed to principal photography. He said, "The critics are going to kill me." I said to him, "Critics are going to kill you anyway." So they always do that. And then later, what a genius, So
Yeah.
anyway, but we still that picture again. I must have really liked that picture. What you call it's just great because I learned a lot about directing that I would never learned. It's like going to a master's program in film directing, and you're there for all the the dailies and that kind of stuff. And I even had my first time I had a crew. I had 2 people working for me, including my mentor, Donald Greenhouse, and it was great. It was a great experience. This is the first documentary I worked on oh boy. It was America's Children, Poorest in the Land of Plenty. That was my first lessons in doing documentaries. It's a whole story in itself.
Wait. So we are getting a few more comments too. Like Judith Carlson, she said, "Hi."
Hey Judy, how you doing? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember when you came to the SF Examiner and started on the Pink Palace project. You showed us how we could change things.
Oh yeah, that was like going home in a way. It was like because where I grew up in Delaney Homes housing project, and it wasn't as as rough as that, but the same kind of feelings that go on. This is my high school reunion, by the way. I never knew this guy could get down like he did. Anyway, yeah, it was extraordinary. Every day, it was also
Wow.
actually one of the most dangerous assignments I've ever had done up until that point, because at night you couldn't really walk on inside the Pink Palace unless you're looking to get knifed or robbed, or if you're in an elevator, get razor bladed, or you give up everything you got, but got through it, and felt like I was living again in an intensified version of Delaney Homes.
Is this from the Million Man March?
Yeah, this was funny because I had to go through 5 police agencies to get there, including the Secret Service and all kinds of other stuff. I mean, what happened was I'm not going to tell you how I did it, but I thought this was important. People doubt that. Hey, I think there's a million guys there. And I talked to somebody, a mapping guy, he said, yeah, easily. He looked at all the pictures I had made, and in this picture, he said, yeah. I mean, it's like just amazing, extraordinary time. This is Jesse Jackson talking at the Columbia University.
Yeah.
So I heard that I used to live near there for a while with some friends from Detroit, And I thought that I heard this noise. I thought, oh, they're having some kind of festival. I get home and I see it on 60 Minutes, not 60 Minutes, on the CNN, that the students are taking over the school. And so I went back downstairs, took my way downstairs, and started photographing. And it's just, I actually got into school with some of the people who had taken it over, and then I decided I thought I got enough, and so I left. And as I was leaving, Jesse Jackson showed up, and so I had sort of sort of like a track record with Jesse and covering stuff, So that's the last picture frame I made. And this is the LA riots. All of his place was destroyed. This is a picture. The riot started the first night. We were working on Poetic Justice, shooting in Simi Valley, a drive-in movie theater. And I asked John Singleton at one point, hey, give me a movie camera, a small video camera. I'll go out and shoot what's going on in the streets. And it's like he didn't even hear me, because he's an African-American, a well-known African-American movie director. He can't afford to do that. He has to stay on line and do the movie that he was, got to do. You got to do it. You can't walk away. You can't take little detours like that. It's a big detour, but it's an important one. But you couldn't do that. So anyway, we shot for a couple of nights there, maybe 3 nights. I think it was a couple of nights. And Saturday morning, it was frustrating because I really felt the need to cover the stuff. But, it's like, 18 hours, or it seems like it was probably, 14 hours maybe. I still hadn't gotten this is the second movie I did, Poetic Justice. I still hadn't got the message that you don't have to stay through the whole movie, a whole shooting night. You shoot what's necessary to get, and then you can leave, if you got everything you needed. So I had stayed there the whole thing once it started. Anyway, I got home. I drove home. I stayed at the hotel in Simi Valley even before this thing started, just because I know how tired I am after working long hours, and I didn't want to have an accident on the way back to the place where I was staying. So I had contacted a friend who was waiting for me with a pickup truck. And then it went out looking, and guess what? The first place it went to, it ran into John Singleton. I was loving the guy then. I said, okay, this is the guy, and this is the security guys. And so I worked for, a few hours on stuff, and I did get a lot of good images. This is from the Million Youth March in Harlem. I really liked that picture a lot, the kid and the whole deal. This is from Not a Pleasant Time. A young man was shot to death in Howard Beach, African-American. He was looking to...
I can't just explain you how exciting to hear all the stories from you, because I basically grew up, watching these photos, in books and getting inspired. And today, this is a great opportunity for all of us to spread your voice, your stories behind your epic pictures. Amazing. So what happened to these photos? It was in home in New York, right?
In Harlem, yes.
Yeah.
I have a friend, Bud Williams, who's passed on. Bud grew up in Harlem, and he was actually, the Olympics when the Black Power salute erupted. He was on the track team then. He was I guess what do you call it, alternate. And one of the guys that raised his fist up was the best man at his wedding. And anyway, I helped, I introduced Bud to Eric Maskauskas, who's a director of photography at Daily News and the most incredible individual I've ever met. First, director of photography in San Francisco. He was the one that gave me a job there. That was my third job in a newspaper, and that in some ways it was the most significant one, because it's like you're being unleashed into doing just shooting stuff, and that was interesting. I mean, like Judy Cowson was one of the people, and I mean, the crew. I love the crew. I mean, I love the crew because I learned so much just every day. Just you learn things from just the way people walk sometimes, and the way they shot stuff. He encouraged not to use strobe whenever possible, and and he was looking for people to work at the daily news. I left the Examiner. It was like crazy because I went to Beirut. That was when I gave my how you say you're resigning, and a lot of thoughts go through my head when I think about those times. Anyway, I know he moved to New York and he's going to take over the Daily News and bring him into the real world, so to speak. And so he was one of the three people that hired. One was Misha Airwood, the son of Elliot Airwood, which is a heavy role to play. He was really good. He's like a friend from, like a brother. I call it a brother. I can't even call them friends anymore. They're brothers, that you care about and what they go through, and it could go a number of other people. David Snyder, Bud, of course, there, and you always feel guilty because you don't have enough time for necessarily your friends because you're doing through your own crap, and it's like very difficult sometimes. But this was every Monday. Bud was off. If I was in town, we just get together. We'd get into his car, he'd drive around, he'd show me around Harlem, and we'd walk, various places. It's like an education about Harlem and the wonders of it, in real detail. And what happened was, I just go bopping along. We go to this restaurant, I think it was on 135th Street for breakfast. And we sat at the table that Malcolm X used to go there to eat breakfast at a lot of times. That's it's like soaking up history. I'm into history, but just doing that, and then we'd start, moving around Harlem. And this is like just one of those scenes, like, a brief split seconds, and there it is. And the picture, the thing that makes the picture work to me are that young girl with the defiant look on top and the little boy holding onto the infant at the bottom.
Yep.
And yet it breaks my heart also in a certain kind of way, because it's like this shouldn't be here. This is their jungle gym, right? This abandoned car, Mm-hmm. This is America, and America has so much to give, so much to the world, and so enriching. And it's not happening now with our current leader, but it's just that it was. I wasn't thinking of politics. I was thinking about this is ridiculous. You take a split second, and then when you look at your contact sheet later, there it is. This is
Eli. We got a kind of question. Charlie Hill. He asked, "How about our story of the Special Olympics?"
Oh, Special Olympics. Who's asking this?
It's Charlie Hiss.
Oh yeah. Hey, how you doing, man? Yeah, that's another genius. It's lucky when you run into geniuses, the people to work with that you admire and respect. I was just thinking a couple of days ago, I got to call Charlie, here it is, right? Yeah, that was great. And, life experience is always an ongoing, hopefully, situation. That sounds like pretty stupid thing to say, but I met Charlie, and I was working with him at Special Olympics, and we were the first day out. We're supposed to. This is like UCLA, right? They're sponsoring. I mean, that's where the Special Olympics is going on, but for some reason didn't have my photographer's identification ID card, and with a vest and that kind of thing. And it was a really nice lady. She just she didn't need it, and she just gave it to me. But it was so cool. It was so really interesting. And I was actually having a little bit of a problem there. A health problem, which I didn't realize till I was doing it. But hey, also Charlie knows the best places to eat food. so just like, I mean, it's like pretty cool. Yeah, great guy.
Fun, of course. Yeah, thank you everyone for your amazing love and wishes you are sending and the comments. Yeah, I just don't want to interrupt in the pictures. Yep. Like, yeah. I see that you have been taking photographs in different formats too.
Right.
In panoramic formats, in color, in 120 format. So, what made you to follow this kind of style?
Life.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Life and people. I mean, I like shooting medium format when I can. I'm using Sony cameras now, which are amazing, and I'm actually worked a documentary that my friend Tracy Dolby, and we worked together. He's an amazing professor. He's in the Hall of Fame for teaching, and he worked for ESPN as making films, and also National Geographic. So hey, this is like another brother, And we did a film on this barber that's not about barbering particularly. It's about a lot of different things, and I'm really excited because it's the first long film I've done myself. I mean, I shot the whole thing with Sony full, the A7 cameras and all kinds of stuff. And sometimes I was using 3 cameras at a time with 2 cameras on a tripod and one handheld, but it worked out really well. And it's not obnoxious. It's not a bunch of tricks. It's about people. It's about communication. It's about so many other things. And
Yeah.
it's like I think if you're a still photographer, if you get a chance to really get into making films, I mean, think about great filmmakers who were really the photographer again, like Steven Spielberg. I had a talk with him at one point, because I was interested in working on his film, but I couldn't do it. Three approaches to me, but I just couldn't do it. I would have loved to because I love his films. He's really, truly, well, you don't have to tell you, he's a great filmmaker, one of the greatest. And, it's like, this is the thing, whatever piece of box you have that takes in light, use it. And the Sony people have gotten it. This is not an advertisement from Sony. This is a reality. They brought so many things together to make things work. And especially, going from stills to shooting video without, any hesitation. It's a beautiful life, and I think that this is the way it is. Visual communication. You can talk without words, except the fact that when you have words to say them well as you can. I'm doing a lot of writing now, more than I've done in my life. I think I shouldn't say that. I co-wrote a novel once with a friend, Carol Oditz. When I was working on which movie was I working on? I was working on The Jackal at the time, and it was very interesting. Somebody told me that we were 15 years too early, so I got to talk to Carol about that so we can see where it goes next. But I'm working on some things. It's like if you have a life, you've had experiences that are special, and you don't realize it. And I love this picture. It's Augusta, Georgia. It's just it's a 50 millimeter 1.8 lens,
Wow.
and just fooling around and not fooling around. I was taking pictures. I was going to be taking photographs of a family reunion, my family reunion for the first time, and my brother. I think my brother's living in Augusta, and it's just came outside, and it's just such a peaceful thing. It's something, it's maybe one of those pictures that when I pass away, that's what I'll be remembering, as a photograph. Because a sense of peace and heaven waiting for you, hopefully. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm hoping it's in someplace interesting. And I hope I have a camera with me at the time. Oh, boy. But
It's so insightful, so insightful. Thank you so very much. I wanted to ask you if you don't mind going back to the photo of Nelson Mandela. So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you what was your experience when you photographed Nelson Mandela?
Well, I'm just in awe of the man. Talk about grace under ridiculous situations, and all that time. And I was asked by a friend from Miramax, from the what do you call it, the publicity department, as a favor, to do some pictures for, I think, do a portrait of him for with the Richard Harris and James Earl Jones for "Cry to Beloved Country" for Ebony magazine. And I said, sure, hey, chance to meet Nelson Mandela, right? And so it had to take the picture, though, a portrait in front of at the Ziegfeld Theater after the movie went down, right? So what happened is, first of all, Secret Service freaked out because the first play had the lights set up and stuff like that. They weren't too happy about that, so I had to move that within 2 minutes of them coming out. And then I explained to each one of them what I was trying to do and hoping to do, And James Earl Jones, he nodded his head. Nelson Mandela nodded his head. They were listening carefully. Richard Harris was all over the place. He was an imp. He's passed on, but I loved everything he ever did, and he was driving me crazy. And at one moment, I pleaded with him, said, "Mr. Harris, please, please," and that's why Nelson Mandela was cracking up, and James Earl Jones, and that little imp look on Richard Harris's face, the price of admission. I mean, you never know how things are going to go, and then they present themselves. So I felt real fortunate on that, and just be able to shake hands with this gentleman, was fantastic. And just I didn't go into how much I love you and that kind of stuff. I mean, I think this guy was one of the coolest cats I've ever met. He went through crap. He went through a horrible situation. He never lost his spine or his willfulness to whatever happens. So yeah, that's the story on that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing up all the historical moments, historical faces through your historical pictures. In this point, can we go back to a little bit on your long-term project on Beirut? And yeah, I know that you have been showing some photos from Beirut. You brought out a book on Beirut. I read in an interview that you said that you were planning to be in Beirut for like few nights, but you ended up staying there for more than 4 months. So what happened in Beirut?
Well, what happened is I'm into history, and I'm watching the Marines were catching hell in Beirut, and Marines are the first place you go to probe inside. And the last time they had been sent to Beirut was by President Eisenhower. So that was a long time off. Also, those are dangerous times because the United States was like basically it was the United States versus the Soviet Union, basically. The same thing that could have happened, might have happened, that happened in Beirut, that happened in Vietnam. And also, I had been at Harvard Neiman program, and I was particularly interested in histories of various countries and things that are going on. But also, I took a course on nuclear, the effect of nuclear war, and I think we were close to a nuclear war when people didn't realize it didn't happen. Luckily, I don't know how many times that happens a week or a year or whatever. But I figured after in that class, and I was watching some other stuff. There's a movie called Threads. It's a BBC movie, which is amazing about the effect of nuclear war on a town after hit by war going on. And it's like you almost want to just be at ground zero because the aftermath is so terrible. It's so horrible that you cannot imagine. And this movie doesn't pull any punches. It's like they showed it in the San Francisco, Oakland on TV, uncut, and then they had people from the community there in the studio and young people, right? And afterwards, they had a question and answer period with the people watching that movie. And the horrible thing is, well, I won't call it horrible. It was the adults sort of danced around it as far as I remember, but the young people all said exactly how they felt about it. And that's, I guess that is some hope, that, if you can address something and then do something about it, that helps. But yeah, so that's why I wanted to go, because I thought this is going to be, right now. And because I've been to history and paying attention, I actually had a class called The History of War, Stanley Hoffman at Harvard also. And that was sort of interesting. It's a thing that I guess that, there's consequences for what we do. There's consequences for the leadership we have and what they do. So that's what got me to go there. That's what got me to want to go there. And then I was there for 2 months, and it was an intense 2 months. A lot of stuff was happening, and then I remember coming back reluctantly to work on Rick Smolin might have changed my life for all I know, because I was really sort of I don't know. Anyway, I came back for work on the day in the life of Hawaii, and then went back to Beirut for 2 more months, and ended up getting abducted and then that kind of stuff. And then I found there was a contract on me for 2 weeks, which is not fun, but got through that. And then I went back the third time to make sure I was covering the Christian side. And I have to say that people from both sides were so giving, and actually admired things from the other side had done, so the Christians and Muslims. So there's a love. You can feel there's a love for their country, and too often I think from the outside people have come in and how you say cause things to happen that maybe wouldn't have happened if they were left alone. I mean, history is a blunt sword that turns sharp at moments when you're not expecting it to. And the thing is that people that are experts on this stuff, well, this is one of my favorite pictures, they know things. Like I asked a guy from Canada, he was like into arms control and some other stuff that was opposite arms control. I asked him, is there any place on earth you can go that you can write out a nuclear war? Even if you're not fighting, And he said, there's no such place. And I asked him again as I was leaving, and he said again, he says, I have 3 children, 2 or 3 children. And his eyes were so sad. He says, there's no such place. So that's why you got to do what you can do to fight. This picture's from Cambodia. It's one of my favorite pictures also. And this one too. I have so much stuff from different places. Is this Wuhan, China? I spent a lot of time there, which I loved, and working with a group. Mr. Song, you may know him. He's an amazing photographer, amazing person, and it's like a movable workshop. So I saw a lot of wonderful things. There was life going on, and this is at Inner Mongolia, the photographic festival that's held there. I don't know if it's been held now, but that was also good. I went there for a few years. This is with Mr. Song's group, and like students that they're adults, not kids. That are really serious about photography. This is the oldest fort in China.
Yeah. Eli, if I want to go back to your photograph of President Barack Obama, I know that you have been covering Obama several times. Do you think in this given situation of America, would you be so much welcomed as a photographer, as a legendary photographer? Would you be so much welcome in the White House at this moment?
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Yeah, I'd love it, but I've actually photographed alone twice President Trump. And that's all I'm going to say. I'd love to, because I'm into history. I would have loved to have been in President Obama's administration. But Pete Souza is fantastic and wonderful. I love that guy. He's a great photographer, and those photographs he made maybe so they're not maybe they're some of the most important pictures made ever in the White House, I think. And there's some there's also the other photographers what they started. So they all fit together. It's like amazing, and it's important. And as for his current president, I don't know what's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete Souza is really amazing. We have some more questions. I just wanted to go some in this direction again. So there are like photographers in color all over the world, and I was watching on Facebook, on social media during this Black Lives Matter movement, that another very acclaimed photojournalist, Maggie Steber, she was asking the editors to hire black photographers. Do you think that in the photography industry at this contemporary time, we are still in a period where the the color really does matter?
Yes, it does matter, because if especially you grew up in a culture that's not hyper aware of other people. Maybe your culture is the only one, and it can get grody. It can get grody. And my way of dealing with that was that I knew that was happening, and there's nothing I could do except do my work. I mean, it's like that's the only thing that's going to. I mean, you may not last physically, but the work will last, and that's the thing. That's the one thing I'm concerned about now is like to figure out a place or that would accept my archive that I trust, that I respect, and because it's a tricky thing. That's your life's blood. There's times when you could have so much a photographer who had 30 something rolls of unexposed film when he passed away. That was to me a horror show. Though there's been some very good books done afterwards, but you're sort of lucky. Hopefully, people are respectful enough. But people can write their own history. They can write their own history from your work, and if you're gone, unless you have somebody looking after stuff, you arrange that it's hard to hold on to what you were trying to do or say. And
Yeah. So given this fact, do you think there are still discriminations in this industry?
of course there are, and people come from different places, and there's people who actually don't realize they're being that way. They don't realize they're being racist or subjective because you don't fit into their worldview. And that's not a new thing. That's an old thing. And then of course you'll meet people though who are beyond that in a good way, and those people become your extended family in some ways because you respect them because they respect you.
Of course. We got a very important comment from the acclaimed photographer Meredith Kohut. She wrote, "Hi Eli, I'm forever grateful for everything you have taught me over the years. What advice do you have for young photographers who are starting to document the Black Lives Matters movement and racial inequality in America?"
Well, what I'd have to say is that get rid of your own preconceived notions to begin with, and be open to and listen. And it's like a simple kind of thing, but it's a truthful thing. If you get away from your own ego, and you really want to understand and see what the reality is, that means you got to get rid of your trigger impulses to you see something and it becomes it's almost like a sporting event, some action, burning cars and stuff like that, and it's well beyond that. It is well beyond that. It's like the people the thing that's been interesting that some people have been talking about, television people talking about how the faces of these young people that are going out there are really that's just more faces that from different groups combining together, and it's not just like because you're Jewish or you're Italian or you're gay or this or that, it's you're all in this thing together, and if you ignore that, you're in danger of destroying whatever possibility you have of going forward to the real reality, and it's like that everywhere, but there's other places that appreciate art and what you have to say, particularly overseas, I think, in Europe and certain other places that get beyond that. And that's the wonderful thing. I don't think it's an accident. Everybody didn't come from France who's in Magnum, but the core of doing things that makes a big difference, and that companies also how companies conduct themselves. I would say a word again about Sony because they've been doing pretty good, I think, addressing certain things, and they actually listen to the photographers. That's to me, that's the most important thing, that you listen to people, you listen to the other side. Now, this picture I have up now, I think it's the last picture, is it? Yep, it's the last picture. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry. This is Frank, the guy we're doing the documentary on. That was interesting how I could do that. I think this is the last picture. A leap into the void. But is it? Yep, nope, it's not the last picture. This is the last picture.
Okay. More pictures, of course. Yeah.
Oh, but the other picture I was talking about, that gentleman with the sombrero, Biraj, musician, he's married. His wife is 20-something years older, and they both are hilarious. They're really they love each other, and they have this passion for life, and so you just have to smile. It's like us doing a project with Professor Maggie Rodriguez, a project on documenting Latinos. History of Mexican Americans and in America and in Texas and around and all kinds of. She's been working this for 20 years. It's an extraordinary project. And I think she asked me to help out one time and ended up being part of the crew, which is good. You know, I'd like to see something start like that for African Americans and at the University of Texas also. I mean, that's the thing. You have to have, and I mean, you learn every day from people, and the people that are. Like Branson, what's his first name? The Virgin Airlines. This is amazing. I can't remember his first name. Anyway, he's one of those people that really encourages women, and I mean, just it's not just like the normal thing that women are just put on this thing like, oh, it's a certain kind of thing. There's this, that, the kind of nonsense. And there's other people. There's a guy who owns a big hotel in San Francisco, who was like that with his employees. He didn't just pick the strongest guy in the block or something, or he really engaged and welcomed women to the company in responsible positions. That seems like it's an old story. It's not an old story. It's a new story. New story because there's need more people to be that way, to be receptive to all races, and to be all I don't care what gender you are. Let's go for it.
Sure. Eli, there's a comment from Kimberly J. Sonnen. She asked, do you feel this uprising will transform U.S. structurally? Will this bring about true structural change?
Oh, you're talking about what's going on now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I think so. Hey, things happen slowly, but this is a very good start. And not the people that have been purposely, destroying stuff. That's obviously, that's not in it. But the group of people that could be. Remember the 60s. That was a real change. I mean, people that were called hippies are now running companies now. Hopefully they haven't changed their ideas. But I think it's a possibility. You can't walk away from possibilities. If you do, then you've given up the ship, I mean, it seems horrible. Seems time to leave, but not necessarily. You can, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in others who think the same way and are willing to talk. I mean, it gets dangerous also when some people are talking about activists activism being a horrible thing. But there's nothing wrong with really listening to people and try to be honest with your pictures. Try to be honest as hell, because as soon as you start, like, there's one group, I can't remember the name of it, but they had this thing where you had to adhere to this kind of thing that they had set up. I mean, being righteous. They meant well, but I think that sort of holds you back in certain ways. You have to be originally yourself, and yet hopefully you have some kind of understanding of your responsibility for being real. If you don't have that sensibility, then you're in danger of screwing yourself. Really, you're in danger of just going on and on, different coloring, different suits, but it's the same old story if you're not careful about that. I don't know any way of doing it. I mean, I think day by day, it's like we have an opportunity to change things slowly, gently, and reasonably. I mean, it's like a voice of reason. It's out there. Now you just got to catch up to it. It's like, for example, sometimes you can talk and talk and talk, and you're at a train station. The train's waiting to go. The train goes, and you miss the train because you're too busy trying to set up this other stuff that maybe, yeah, it happens slowly. It's a slow train, and you catch it if you understand that. If you don't understand that, all you do is you talk and talk, and you miss the train that went on to something else, and nothing changes then. So hopefully this is a time where at least I'm not talking about not talking about things. I'm talking about taking the bull by the hands and not just yelling at people or telling people, oh, you're doing it the wrong way. Talk to the people, talk to each other, figure it out. We're supposed to be adults or something like that. Booming silence. Did I screw up here?
I'm sorry. Yeah, some very powerful and insightful thoughts indeed. So I think we are almost at the end of our presentation. So I have one last question for you before I just want to go through the last comment here. Sheila Green Kenton. She says, Richard Branson is owner of Virgin Airlines. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
She's right. Yeah.
Right.
So, Eli, like there is an immense positivity and hope lies underneath of your photographs. So I remember looking at your photos when I first started photography, like 20 years ago, and there was this picture in Harlem, and you showed us already. It's a group of laughing children take over an abandoned car, using it as a jungle gym, as you showed and talked about. So, considering the places you have been in Central America, Middle East, and and many other places, there are very few photos of guns and violences. Like instead, you have been showing us your pictures show people's power to cope and like the power of people to resist people's powers of resistance. So what is your philosophy behind this?
My philosophy is this last picture. I was shooting, it's basically checking out the possibility of doing this film in Peru, in the Amazon, about sustainable logging. And this is in this jungle town. And that little girl there in the darkness, to all intents and purposes, she's everybody. I mean, that's ever been in poverty and had difficult time. And the shape of the picture and the lights coming in, it's always hopefully ever onward. That was a split second. I was shooting a video, and on my website there's a 7-minute thing of about that because I wanted to. It was a test, so it's there for 10 days, and it didn't work out because of stuff that would make a great movie. By the way, it would have been in Amazon for 6 months. The only thing that worried me about that with anacondas, But that I think as I think about that little girl there and what she may be going through or what's gone through, but anything is possible. And that if you don't think anything is possible, then it doesn't happen. You just do your best. You be your best as a human being, and that's what goes with me every time I go pick up something. Not trying to feel what's going on with people. Hopefully, how you would feel in a certain situation. I mean, I think working in the hospital as long as I did also helped you see things much more clearly, much quicker when you come into a situation. And the fact that you're like a doctor, thou shalt not harm. That's an important factor. And I remember these two brothers, acquaintances of mine, friends of mine, acquaintances, who, when Beirut book came out, they were not. They said, no, there's not enough action stuff here. Hey, the action happens in the head also, thinking, and then trying to capture what you're seeing or perceiving of different situations. It's not about. I mean, these two photographers, think about it, both really did amazing work as news photographers, but that isn't only it. And everybody grows, hopefully, if they want to. If you're content to stay where you are, well, that's where you are. I can't say anything really better than that, because it's a game. It's a long, endless game, but it's not really a game. It's like an intent to see how you're going to live, how you're going to die eventually. How would you like to be perceived when you go? I mean, I don't think about that much. I just want the work is what really matters, And I don't want to join my ancestors too early, if at all. If I can get away with it, never,
Yeah.
It's like it's important to take a look at yourself at some point and figure out, who do you think you are? Who do you want to be? And then work toward that, maybe. There's so many different ways of getting to a sensibility of, I call it truth, within yourself. And when you can do that, when you can look at yourself in the cold light of day or the bright burning light of day, if you can look at yourself and say, I want to do something worthwhile, something meaningful, something that helps the world go on, not die, and that's the best you could do. That's the best thing you can do. You all have talents, more talents than you realize. And when you find it out, try and use it. If that makes any sense, it makes sense to me. But that's what I've tried to do.
Yeah, very, very, very insightful. Of course, I think I'm so much lucky today that I'm hearing some really very important advices and some very important stories behind your photos and of your lifetime. Of course, I personally had a lot of things to ask you, but I still believe that this has been an amazing experience for all of us, because I promised you it's gonna end within an hour, but you already gave us time more than 1.5 hours, which I really really appreciate. So I I think we are at the end of our session.
Hmm.
So is there anything you wanna suggest to the new photographers, or you have to say?
Excuse me. Yeah. I think it's like, when you wake up in the morning, look at the light wherever the light's hitting, and then go out and find your own light. That may be the best thing you can do. I mean, you have a light within you that wants to say or do something or make photographs of something that's important to you. And I mean, I could probably go through so many images that I'll never could get a chance to even look at this stuff. And I'm before I started working for newspapers, I had like negatives in a contact sheet book with the contact sheets, and that's harder to do now in some ways, because I'm not really the most organized thing. Like right now, I'm writing a lot, but I'm shooting, too. I mean, the older you get, the more precise you want to get, and if I can bring all that together without going insane, that's what I would do. But when you're first starting out, go insane. Do the things you're not supposed to do photographically. See what happens when you do that. I'm not talking about even just photographing people, photographing objects. I'm looking at the desktop here, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. And where's my camera? It's on the other side of the table. That's the fun part, though. Photography it's a beautiful thing. Art is a beautiful thing. The concept of thinking beyond the pale is a beautiful thing. I love thinking beyond the pale, because you don't know what's out there. Beyond the pale is not necessarily a bad thing. it's a good thing when you can look into yourself and express something from the inside that says something that affects all kinds of things. The work you do, the things you say, the drawings you make. I've been drawing since I first started. Where I have all kinds of notepads because we're in an endless time frame, whatever time it is, and you don't know what time it is. When you're supposed to go. So don't go. Stick around. Do more stuff. Until you can't do it anymore. That's what I plan to do anyway.
Yes, do more stuff. And I can't thank you enough, Eli. Thank you so very much. And we truly appreciate your time. We owe you so much. The history of photography, owe you so much. And, means you have given us some tremendous sense of journey and some tremendous photographs in the history of photography. And from this live show, from Andrew Biraj live show, I just want to wish you a very very happy and longer life, of course, a healthy life, and maybe I want to meet you someday in person today again.
Okay. I hope to come to New York sometime soon when it calms down, and so I can fly there and see friends and get reconnected and all that kind of good stuff. So I appreciate the time and the opportunity to connect with all you guys out there, friends that I've talked to for a while. So
yeah, my apologies to all the people which I couldn't read your comments. Still, a lot of comments are coming in. So I'm sorry that we had a time limitations, but I really appreciate that Mr. Eli Reed, he has given us way more time than he promised. So thank you very much, Eli, again. And
yeah, well, that's just thinking. One of the most amazing experiences I ever had was work at the Examiner. So rock on Examiner, even though the photography doesn't exist anymore. But that's the thing; it always exists in your mind. And it's been a great conversation because I didn't have the slightest idea what the heck I was going to say. but yeah, I'm lucky. I've had good friends, good family, family and friends, and you just remember things with great joy, and watching people do stuff and inspires you to do stuff. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. And thank you for the opportunity, really, to be on your program. So
it's an honor, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. And you have a very good rest of the day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see what's going on here. I kept trying to see how I turned.
Viewers, it is my constant effort to present legendary and successful photographers from all around the world and the story behind their lives' work in front of you. I will appear in the next episode with a new guest with new stories. Until then, stay tuned and support Black Lives Matter.